Hello, everybody. Boy, I feel awfully formal being up here, and you're kind of scattered. I wonder, I'll leave you where you are. I bet you would hate that if I said, hey, everyone, come to the front. So I won't do that. I won't do that. But later on, we might want to do a little chatting amongst ourselves, so we'll figure out maybe how to clump you up a little bit. I'm going to wait a couple minutes. I know people are still coming in. And in the meantime, I did want to make this a little more participative than just listening to me talk all for a full hour. So we have what's called a Mentimeter. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but the young people in my office figure these things out, and this is a fun way for you to participate in this presentation using your cell phone. So you can just weigh in with some opinions about things, and that will make this a little bit more engaging for you, I think. So all you need to do is go to, you can either shoot the QR code, or you can type in www.menti.com, MENTI.com, and then it will ask you for the numbers that are written there, and you'll be in. And when the right time comes, as I go through the presentation, there'll be questions for you. And they will be confidential. No one will know what you're saying. It'll be great. We're just going to take another minute or so, let people kind of wander in. Now I've lost it. There we go. You know, I'm having problems sharing this. I wonder if one of you guys know how to do that in the back room. And that would make this presentation go a little better. Hang on. I had it all ready to go. It's just not showing the share bar, which I'm wondering if I'm covering it with this. Do you have any idea? It's just like a PowerPoint presentation, but the share function, which is usually up here, is not showing. It's probably maybe not something you're familiar with. It's like I don't know if I've fully launched this. Oh, here.
The full screen. Got it.
There we go. That should do it. Okay.
That's maybe what you're trying to do.
Sorry about that. Okay, sorry for that delay. Those young people in my office didn't tell me about that part. Okay, good to see you all. Well, so let me do a little bit of introduction here. My name is Sarah Newberg. I'm the Executive Director of Career Services Administration at the university. And over the years, I've been working here at the university for around 30 years now, and I've had the opportunity to direct various career centers around campus, including over in the Carlson School, over in the Food and Ag Business, or Food and Ag Natural Resource Sciences College, College of Design, College of Continuing and Professional Studies. So I've seen a lot of different angles on career development over my years. That's been really my passion and focus of my professional life. And in my role now, I oversee an office that coordinates career services across the entire campus. So the model here at the university is whatever college your student, or those of you who are students, whatever college you're in, is where you get your frontline career services. But my office coordinates a lot of the efforts around shared services across them. So I'll try to talk a little bit across all majors today as I'm talking with you. The other thing I'll tell you about my other life is that I'm also with you out there. I have a parent hat on now. Both my daughter is a sophomore at Iowa State and my son is a freshman here. So I'm also here for Parents' Day today. So it's fun to transition from thinking I knew what to do as a professional to finding out as a parent it doesn't always work as easy as I thought it did back when I was a professional. So I feel like I've got a little bit of a understanding of kind of the nuance and the dance that might be going on when you're working with your own kids on their career goals and depending on their personalities and all. So if you're coming in late, I just want to go back for a second. We are going to be using this app to do some participation in this session. So if you can go to Mentimeter or Menti.com, www.menti.com, or use the QR code, and on the pages ahead, you'll see that code at the top if you lose track. So you can just go ahead and enter that code. I'm going to go ahead, and you should still see it there. Or did they put it at the bottom? Oh, it's not there. All right, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to make sure you can do that then. Does anyone have any problems getting into the app? Okay, great. All righty then. Come on in, everybody. We're just getting started. So what I'm going to do today is talk about a few of the resources and just some advice and some kind of approaches to supporting career outcomes. And I wanted to start with this slide. This is from one of our surveys that we do of all students at the university. Well, I shouldn't say all students. It's a sample, but across all ages and stages and levels and majors. And this is the results to the question of what are the factors that you use to decide your major. And so as you can see, the number one factor is just intellectual curiosity. So students who are here because they love the subject that they're studying and they are excited about learning things, that's a high number, 95%. And it kind of ties into a lot of what we say in career development, that sometimes what you want to do is just follow your curiosity and it will lead you into some opportunities that you may not expect, may help kind of unfold what the opportunities are for you. But right behind that are the high rankings as well for finding a fulfilling career and leading to a high-paying job. Now, that's a much lower number, which I always find kind of interesting. So that tells us our students aren't necessarily here to make a lot of money. That's not their first thing. The first thing is they want to find a career that they look forward to participating in and going to every day. So that's why we're here today. Is I work in my role all the time with that focus, is what is the best things we can be doing at the university so students can land in that fulfilling career that they're looking for after they leave here. All right, here we get to have our Mentimeter. So pull out your phone. For those, we have our code back at the top. For those of you who just came in late, we're doing a little app. On your phone, just go to Menti.com, www.menti.com, and plug in that code, and you'll be able to start responding to this. But I thought it would be good to start with how you are feeling about your students' career future. Feel free to throw up some words that come to mind. It's very positive responses here today. That's great. I've got a lot of excitement out there today. One more. curious. Oh, curious is great. Just how is this all going to turn out? Isn't that fun? Yeah, I have that sense as well. So this is a great word cloud here that just shows, I think that you're all in good company with a lot of people who are just really feeling good about your students' career plans and outcomes that are coming. Occasionally we do see some more negative comments in there, and that can kind of ebb and flow. But when I ask students this question, how are you feeling? A lot of times it's these answers. Then there's this other piece that's anxiety, you know? So for students, sometimes that uncertainty causes a little anxiety. So it's good to name that too. But I'm glad we've got a confident group here. And so I'm glad you're here to do all you can to, you know, boost your students' work, given that you're feeling good about it. So here's, in short, what I'm going to talk about today. We've been studying now for a while, what is it that happens to students that makes them successful when they do that transition out of college? And so I'm going to talk briefly about that. I'm going to talk about some resources. I am conscious now myself from going through orientation. You've seen some of these, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But the university has such amazing resources. It's really what makes this a really good place. It's one of the reasons I wanted my son to attend here. So I'm going to revisit a few of those. We'll talk about how you can be a supportive role in your child's work towards their career. And then we're just going to talk a little bit about how careers have changed, because things have evolved in the last 30 years or so. So I want to kind of acknowledge that. I think sometimes we get stuck in the past in terms of how that works. So here's the 5 habits of successful college grads. And I wrote this myself about probably 15 years ago when I just noticed, wow, when students do these things, we don't have to worry about them in that transition. So it's not like the career centers have to do a lot of heavy lifting or work with the students, or that the students do as they're leaving if they've been working on these things throughout their experience. So number 1, just being involved. And that's because you need to develop more understanding of what your opportunities and experiences and what your own skill set is, and also just makes you feel like you belong on campus. So that's a real important one. I'll mention a few of those. Being flexible about your career plan, because things evolve on your end as well as the outer world's end, and need to be able to pivot sometimes. Gaining experience, and so one of the things we know is internships or related kinds of experiences are such a huge predictor of strong outcomes. So it doesn't have to be internships, but some kind of work-related, career-related experience ideally. Making connections with people who are in a place to give you advice, and then using your resources here at the university. So those are the things I see students do. When they do that, it just seems like everything else falls into place. And so here's where we do repeat a little bit. I know you heard this at orientation, but we just know how important it is to get involved in campus. I know many of you have already heard about the Gopher Link. You know, this is the first stop, first way to find out about all the different opportunities on campus. And I'm always a little, because I'm a career counselor, probably biased towards those opportunities that have a career focus. So there are clubs out there for almost every career area. There's many business clubs, there's science clubs, there's women in engineering, there's crops and soils club that I used to help advise over in St. Paul. So there's something for everyone. And then I always say to students, I don't care what it is. The main thing is to get involved, ideally take on some role there, some organizational role or leadership role where you start to develop some of those skills. And it doesn't matter if it is the lettuce eating club, I think is the latest one that's been getting attention. It doesn't matter if it's that, as long as you are engaged in developing some new skills as you're working on that. So, and this just describes why that's important. So these are competencies that have been researched and researched over the years. Again, I've been in this field a long time. These same things keep coming up over and over again from our employers. They shift a little bit, but this is what employers tell us they're looking for in students when they're hiring our graduates. And there's no better way to develop those than through some of these involvement opportunities. And so that's why our employers look very carefully at, you know, like I was saying, you know, you can be in the lettuce eating club. It'd be great if you took on a leadership role or a teamwork role, those kinds of roles where you can develop these skills. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit. Give me some words. Which describes your students' career goals? Has identified and well researched their career goals, has a tentative plan, but it could change, still totally deciding. What is the breakdown of this group. We got a, oh, that's very symmetrical so far. Okay. And those of you who have, those students that have done really well researched careers, that's why you're feeling some optimism, because that's what we would hope for, is that you've done your research, you really have a solid feeling about that. And so, but we also know that many, well over half of our students are going to change their major. Sometimes our students who are decided find out something about the field down the road and decide to change their major. So we're always kind of in that camp of thinking about, what would you do if that weren't what you did? You know, what's that backup plan? And then we're also, of course, providing a lot of services around here just to be sure that we're covering the students who are in that pink and red category, are thinking of some things, but they would like a little bit more support in making sure they're making good decisions, because 4 years goes really fast around here. And so, oh, I don't know, I think I might be missing a slide there, but one resource I want to mention, I'll just name is CAPE, the Center for Academic Planning, and, oh, I always do it wrong. Center for Academic, Planning and Exploration. I want to make sure I got my P word right there. The point is, it's the office that will help students figure out, what do I want to major in? Because we want to make sure students can decide that as early as possible. And that's a good start, too, on what are the career options that I would want to consider. The other way to really work on making those career decisions or solidifying them, or sometimes there's a decision, but then there's sub-decisions to make. It's like, I know my field, but now what kind of company do I want to work for? What kind of projects specifically do I want to work for? What kind of industry do I want to work in? So we make sure that we have staff available in every college. Every college has a way for every student to meet with a career counselor. And it's as simple as get on the website, click a button, and voila, you have a meeting with a career counselor. It's really that simple. And sometimes students will say, we learned this finally, that some students wouldn't come in to visit us, and we realized, oh, they don't know what question to ask. And so one important thing is to know, you don't need to know the question to ask. Career counselors are used to working with students. They'll figure out where you're at in your career development and kind of help you figure out what maybe are next steps to work on. So at some point, I recommend every student have at least one of these meetings. We have some students who have 10 of these meetings because that's where they're at. They're just really trying to make some decisions, or they're starting to apply for jobs and they're needing help with resumes, they need help with interviewing. So those resources are there for you. Make sure you take advantage of them. It's a really good value, by the way. If you paid for those services in private world, that's an expensive service. So take advantage. We have great staff for that. The other thing a lot of our colleges do is offer career courses. So these are great because they just cover all the things you need to know for your career preparation. So keep an eye out for those opportunities. They're often one-credit courses. They're not usually a heavy lift, but they really will help get ahead so that you're kind of not floundering through, oh, I have an interview now, how do I do that? So this is, I wanted to give one resource that students can just use on their own. And by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm going to provide a link to this presentation, so links to all of these, you will have access to them, so you don't have to try to write this all down. But ONET is the federal government's career exploration site. I don't find this works for every student, but for some students, they just want to dig in and do research on career options. This can research careers, it can research skills you have and you don't know what careers they relate to. It can kind of take it from that angle. It can suggest jobs, and it actually does have links out to job postings. So it's a good site to just play around with if a student is saying, I just really don't know what I want to do. This will help start that research process. And I would generally encourage you to use this along with a human career counselor, kind of in combination, but this sometimes is a good way to get started. I will mention, I use this with my daughter because she's a chemistry student, but she doesn't really want to do bench science. And I had her go through this and just kind of rule in or out some of the careers she's thinking about. And it was helpful to just see what's she drawn to. That's always a good exercise. Just what is it that you're kind of reacting to as, I don't have any interest in this, where are the categories that you're finding, oh, that kind of resonates for me. Okay. Oh, and here's that other slide. It's a little where I didn't expect it, but this is the Center for Academic Planning and Exploration, so we'll have that link later too. Okay, the other thing we know, and this just research is coming back stronger and stronger and stronger, is to build some kind of related experience before you graduate. And in some programs, we kind of do that for you. We may require that you have an internship. In others, it's a little bit more up to the student. So generally, we're talking, I'm going to stay on that for a second. Generally, we're talking about internships here, but if you just put yourself in kind of the employer's place, you may realize that really what employers are looking for might be anything that's related to the kind of work they do there. So we can be broad. It might be research, it might be co-ops, it might be community service. It could be a lot of different things. So let's take a look at this question, a little multiple choice. I almost just gave this away. Which of the following is most important to employers when evaluating candidates? What do you think? If you were an employer hiring, what would you be looking for? And I'm going to give you an answer based on a survey that we do of our employers, so we'll see. Big on leadership in this group. Yay. I love that you're all participating. I love all these little blue dots. It's very exciting, isn't it? Okay, I think we probably got most of you. So we have 50% of you in leadership. Nope, it's changing. Okay, still 50%. A clump down for internships and a clump for basic work experience. And I'm kind of glad to see not everyone, you're not voting for major. Major can be so important for fields if you're going to be an engineer or graphic designer or accountant, where the major really prepares you. But so many of our employers are saying they just aren't really concerned about what students' majors are. There's a lot of examples of that. And it doesn't mean they don't care about having related experience. But all right. Let's get the big reveal here. What's the answer? The answer is surprisingly any basic work experience. Isn't that weird? Every time I see this, and we have surveyed our employers. This last survey, we had thousands employers respond to our survey of who hire our students. And so, I don't know. I don't even fully know how to interpret this. I just see the data come back over and over again this way. But I think that's, in some ways, a good news for students who may be feeling, I know that I've seen this in my kids, just a little bit of an intimidation, especially at the beginning, not being ready for an internship. That may seem like a big leap. And so just starting with a job, just starting with getting work experience, ideally work experience that is somewhat related to your interests. I mean, I've seen students who became a bank teller. It was just a simple entry-level position, and that kind of led down the rest of the path. Or people who managed, convenience store, and just that little bit of management experience. So it wasn't really an internship, but they were able to leverage the work in some other ways. So that's important. But we also find that next one, that structured experience is important as well to employers. And our national research really is showing the distinction between students that have had an internship and those that haven't. It's much stronger outcomes for those that have had an internship or some kind of related work experience. So again, working with career staff, we post hundreds and probably, well, really thousands of internship opportunities on our Handshake account. Some of them are better than others. I know my son, who is a freshman, I've told him, don't plan on an internship your freshman year. That's a tall bar, but try. And so he's going to the career fairs and trying, and he's making some contacts. And I'm just kind of proud of him that he's going to the career fairs, because I know that's kind of hard to fit that in a freshman year. But I think ultimately that all adds up to more experience, and that'll pay off in the end. Okay. The other thing we're working on a lot is student employment. If there's an opportunity to work on student employment, again, I'm sorry, I won't keep talking about my kids the whole time, but the next thing I was going to say to him was get some kind of an experience on campus. And there's so many reasons to work on campus if you can. One, it's just convenient. Two, the people who supervise our students on campus jobs, they already know the university. They're like a cultural navigator for students to figure this place out. So it can be a really helpful, supportive situation. It's a way to meet other students. It's a community. But we're like our own little city here. I mean, we're a very large institution. We have accounting jobs. We have design jobs. We have social media jobs. I mean, you name it. We have event planning. We have so many different jobs that really have a professional connection to them. And a lot of people in those jobs full-time started as students and just worked their way into them. I myself hired our student worker to be our career fair coordinator because I could just see she was such a good organizer. So take advantage of what's right here on campus and take a look at the student employment site that will give you jobs on campus. Handshake provides a lot of them as well. So. And that, I'm talking about Handshake, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with it. This is our way to tell students about jobs. We don't, people always come to the career centers and say, what jobs do you have? Well, we don't have the jobs. If we did, we would put them on Handshake because we don't want to hide them. We want them out there for everyone. It's partly an EEO issue for us. We want all students to have access to all jobs. So that's the first place to start. It's not the place to end, but it's a very effective way to find out where are there internships. It makes it really easy to apply. You have to do some work on the front end to develop a profile. You want to upload a resume. But from there, it's so easy to just click buttons to apply for jobs. And I think sometimes kind of a misconception that I've seen students have is they'll apply for a couple jobs and then be frustrated they didn't get the couple jobs. So I always say, apply for a lot of jobs. There's a lot of students applying. Unfortunately, there's so many applications coming in that a lot of times our employers don't respond to every student, so that can be frustrating. We're kind of trying to work on that better internally, but the word is, apply for a bunch of stuff. It gets real easy on Handshake to just push that button and do that. And again, in my son's case, he found a job over in the foundation that he's excited about, but I've suggested, keep watching. Now that you're there, work there for a while. Don't quit right away, of course, but just come on in, everyone. Welcome to join us. Okay, great. Once you've been on campus for a while, you have a little better shot at some of those more, job-related jobs. So I should mention Handshake is where we put all our career fair information as well. So we have over 30 career fairs on campus. All of that information is available in Handshake. I always want to push the Learning Abroad Center. That is just another thing that when our employers see it, they know that students have had a certain kind of experience, have learned to be independent, have learned to problem solve, all those things that they're looking for. So consider that. It's, you think right away, oh my gosh, that's going to be expensive. It might cost a little more money, but there's a lot of scholarships, and there's some programs that really are not that expensive. So take a look and don't rule that out. There's a lot of, they do a lot of programming where they just have students come in and just describe what is happening there, and it's just a way to educate yourself and then decide from there whether that can fit in. But that's one you want to start early. You don't want to decide in your junior year to go abroad, because by then you have to work your classes around and it gets a lot harder. So early planning on that can be really important. Okay, and then of course we want students to build connections. I mentioned our career fairs. One other really great resource, I don't know, parents in the room, if you think about someone that you know from maybe, your friend's kids or somebody that wanted to talk to you about what is your career like, you'd be happy to help them, right? I mean, this is something that's kind of uniquely human. If someone comes to me and says, I'd like your advice about how to become a career counselor, I would love working with them. I love helping people. I love giving advice. It makes me feel important. So that's what this is. This is our alumni who have left the university, they're in their jobs, and they have said, I would love to give back to students by just helping them understand careers. If I can make connections for them, I'll do that. If I can come back and speak in classes, I'll do that. But you can specifically look for alumni that have your career interests that have said, yes, I'd like to network with students, and very easy to just make those connections. So encourage students to take advantage of that as well. Okay, and then last, I've mentioned our career centers. They're based in the colleges. They do kind of 4 things. They do a lot of one-on-one counseling with students. They teach classes. They put up great websites that have a lot of really good content, and here's one of them. This is our central website, but it will direct you out to all the other websites for the career centers that have additional information, and they help students with job search topics as they go. So. And plan career fairs. That's the other thing I want to mention. So that's kind of what they do, and good to build those connections and take a look at those resources. What I find is when I'm working with students and they'll say, I don't know how to write a cover letter, All that information is very clearly stated on these websites, one place or on for any college that you would want to look at. So it's just a good place to get started. I won't spend time on this, but this is all the different career centers we have across the Twin Cities campus. So there's a lot of us around here doing this work. Okay, one last thing, if you're in the health areas or you think you might want to be, this is one of the best resources around. Our private college friends often link to this because they can't put the energy or resources into developing their own version of this, and this is positioned right over there in the med school, so staff are very familiar with how students transition from being students into medical or other health-related programs, vet sci, public health, all of the health-related fields. It will help you know how to apply for those. It will help you know, what does a doctor really do? What does it take to become a doctor? It will give alternatives to, like, you want to be a physical therapist, here's some other careers that are kind of like physical therapy. So if you have students interested in that, make sure you're aware of that resource. It's really valuable. Well done. Okay, I'm going to skip over that. Okay, that's the resources in a nutshell, all the things that I think are important that are career-related. Hope you can take advantage of all of them. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you as parents, I assume you're here because you want to be supportive. So let's get into that topic a little bit. This is a bit of an old survey. It's not one we do all the time, but it's one I did for, I think it was for an internship program, but it was interesting to just see who is it that our students will go to for advice when they're working on their career planning. And friends and peers are number one. That's who they're spending their time with. And so asking each other is really important. We leverage that by putting a lot of student chat kinds of things out in handshakes. There's lots of opportunities for students to react to their experiences and share them. Academic advisors, these are the people that help the students plan their career, or not their career, but their academic plan, what classes to take. Sometimes people confuse those with career counselors. So those are two roles. The academic advisors often meet with the students every semester. For career counselors, it's a little bit more up to the student to take advantage of our services. But because they're with our advisors, we know they go to them quite a lot for advice as well. They go to the faculty, which is always great. Sometimes faculty can be fantastic advisors. Some of them have connections with industry. Sometimes they don't know that much about careers because they've been in an academic setting. So it's just good to realize sometimes that's a really helpful resource and sometimes it's not as helpful. It just depends on the individual. Career counselors, of course, and then parents not far behind all these. And so we know that you're an important resource for them as well. Coworkers, those are the biggies. And before we get into this a little more, I just thought it would be helpful to share. I find this helpful as I'm working with students just to realize, you know, I know that as a parent, when my kids were little, there was so much information to me about, oh, here's how kids are developing. Here's what you can expect of a 3-year-old. Here's what you can expect of a teenager. Well, this continues into college. They're still developing. There's still a developmental process here. And so this is the study of how do college students develop and the tasks that they need to achieve through that process. So I just think it's helpful sometimes to know students may be in a place where they're really working on managing emotions, and that kind of neutralizes maybe some emotional reactions that you might get from students, or they're really trying to establish independence. I think my son might be in that. He just really wants to do everything on his own, and it's a great thing to do, you know. It's like that's just part of learning to do that. So he's not really in a place to get a lot of advice from other people because he's going to do it on his own. So take a look at that if you like. There's also a career development cycle. And so just in a nutshell, this really has not changed much over the years. How do you figure out what career path to follow? You have to understand who you are as a person. What are your skills, interests, values, identities, all of the things about you. What are the career opportunities that are out there? To me, that's the hard one, and I remember this from my own college experience thinking, I think I'll major in business. What's business? You know, I had no idea. My dad was a farmer. I mean, nobody could tell me what business careers were. So either doing the research, making the contacts, getting involved in the programming here on campus to help answer some of those questions about careers that are available using that Maroon and Gold network. And then getting focused in on something, or I've started to say 3 things, you know. I think we want to dispel the myth that there's only one career that can make you happy. There's probably a bunch of them that would make you happy. So maybe thinking about another couple options just in case a door opens and leads you into a different path. That we hear this all the time from people. I don't know, I'm guessing people in this room have had that experience where I thought I was heading here, but then I had this one experience and it took me over there, right? So being open to those changes is really important. And then the last area is exploring options. I think I said I'm out of order, but getting focused and then going out and implementing this this is where the Career Centers usually come in most heavily, is how do you start that resume? Is the resume going to get through an applicant tracking system that most of our companies are using now? It's gotten a little more complicated than when we used to just write one and hope for the best. Now we're dealing with kind of robots on the other side of it, and so we're starting to do more work with AI on that. Same with interviewing. We're doing AI interviews now, but we're also doing in-person interviews. And there's a knack to learning how to do an interview. You might be a really good presenter, but there's a specific kind of formula that you want to use when you're interviewing. So those are the kinds of things that we teach in the Career Centers related to that last step of getting out into the world. All right, now let's hear from you. What do you think? What are some of the other things? I've mentioned a couple, but what are things that are different about the world of work today than it might have been when you were entering the world of work for yourselves? AI. Yeah, that idea that saying college is no longer a ticket to a job, it's a ticket to compete with a job. We've been saying that for a little while now, but it's just a little bit of a different mindset. It makes it a little bit, a little harder than it used to be to just come out of college and be uniquely qualified. Technology driven, everyone's talking about the technology, because I was just talking about that, and I'm really proud of our institution that we're doing some early work on AI and how that could be used in the student experiences in general and within career development. Some of that is already in place. We have a lot of career counselors who are really leaning on ChatGPT to help with cover letters, which is that cheating? It seems like for some students it helps them apply for more jobs. We want to be smart about how we use ChatGPT. And be sure that people are editing it for their own personality and writing style and that kind of thing. But it can really help jumpstart some of the work that needs to be done. Wow, you guys have a lot of good ones. So we got digital world, less focused on the major. I think that's true. It kind of depends a little bit on which major still. I would say, there's still some that are really, you can't become an electrical engineer without that electrical engineering degree. But, outside of some of those fields, there's just a lot of flexibility. And that makes it a little more ambiguous. A lot more occupations, more competitive kids. Yeah, we've started to work on some of these things a little earlier, so students sometimes are a little ahead on these things. That's probably true. Although what I would say is that our focus here is to really work on, we're really working right now on having an onboarding kind of process for students where we assume students have started with no information about careers. And so students can kind of jump in wherever they need the support. We have students who certainly don't need much support at all. But for those students that might not even really know what a resume means, we're trying to be sure that we're explaining that whole process really fully for all students, not assuming anything. So yeah, the world is different. And as I read these comments, it just it looks like it might be a little bit more daunting or a little bit more challenging. There's a little more to know, and so we're trying to make sure that we. Oh, I lost my computer. I lost my computer, and now I lost my presentation. Hang on. Oh, I see what I need to do. Okay. Yeah. Thinking if there's anything else to say about this. But I think it's just important to acknowledge that what you might have experienced yourself, it might be a little different kind of experience for students who are in this right now. Here's some of the things that I would mention. This is just kind of a list. Some of the changes in how we think about career planning I mentioned earlier. we've found that when we really look at long-term career paths, they just are often not linear. They weave around, so the idea of that second topic, planned happenstance, it's a theory of career development that you should plan your career. You shouldn't sit back and be passive. You should plan, but you should also stay open because there might be opportunities that come up where you don't expect them. So that's a fairly new theory. That and the last one, I love their title, Chaos Theory of Careers. It's the idea that, and I think your previous slide suggested that, there's just a lot of chaos out there, and how do you make sense of that? And how do you manage in that? And that's where we get to things like, planning for multiple opportunities, just accepting that things are going to change quite a lot and that you'll probably be changing careers a lot, and getting used to managing your career rather than just thinking that you'll stay in that one role forever. I was kind of scared to start talking to students about that when I was teaching a career course, but I found it was actually kind of a relief to people to just admit, yeah, this is a little bit of a different world that is a little more chaotic. It's a little more exciting too, and there's a little bit more opportunity. So there's some silver lining there too. We're also just dealing with more mental health issues. That's something that we're very aware of on campus and working on. It's very difficult to progress in career planning when you are working on mental health, if you're having barriers to that. So we see those as going hand in hand. But I also would argue that sometimes it's the career indecision that can cause the mental health issues. So it can be a little stressful and cause some of that. So we want to be working on that on both ends. This is, if you want to look this up when I send this out or when you get on there, this is one of my favorite. It's a little old. I don't know if they're going to do this for the 2020 census, let alone what's coming up. But this is the coolest graph that just shows how people in certain majors end up in different occupations. And do I have that defaulted? I can't remember if I defaulted, but you can set this up to do just STEM careers, and you'll still see this crazy, amazing diversity of careers that come out of STEM fields. So if you haven't been convinced yet that that there's a lot of different opportunities for students, that will probably do it. This is also related to that, the number of positions. This is our own employers, again, that survey telling us how many require a specific major. And so those that need a specific major is about a third of those. And we know that those are mostly our technology employers. So that kind of gives you a sense of how important that specific major is. All right, let's kind of switch gears here and talk about how what can we do as family and friends to be supportive to our students? What are some things that, so let's go back to our own experiences with this. How did someone help you as you were going through your career development? What did they do that was helpful to you? If you think back to your own experience. This one takes a little more typing, so we'll allow you some time here. And I know we have students out there, maybe you've had experiences already that people have done things that are helpful to you, maybe in high school, for example. Help with resume, make a referral. Networking, yep. I love this list. This is catching everything. I wonder, yeah, there's always that need sometimes for challenge, a little challenge, and a little support. Having the right balance of that is important. Okay, let's talk about a couple of these. I keep thinking I'm going to talk about one and then it moves. Job shadow, yeah. Let's talk about, go a little deeper on this idea of referring kids to maybe friends, family, whatever, people who might be in a position to help them. There's a little bit of a, I've learned there's a little bit of a educational process there. What I've found sometimes, and this happened to me in college actually, my Uncle Chuck, I remember he said, hey, you gotta go talk to this guy. He was like kind of a bigwig in some company. And here I was like 19 and I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what to talk to him about. And I don't know what I did talk to him about, but it did not help me at all because I didn't know how to approach that. So what can be really helpful, I think at this stage, if you have connections, is really to set that up as a chance for getting advice. Not to help find an internship, not for those tangible outcomes, not could you help my son or daughter find a job, find an internship, make an in with someone else. I wouldn't ask them for things that are hard for them to deliver on. I would ask them for, what is your advice? And tell us, and can you share what your experiences are as an accountant? If your child wants to be an accountant, here's your friend who is an accountant. They could really learn a lot just by talking with them about what is a day in the life like? What does a typical entry-level salary look like? You're not going to ask them their salary, of course, but you can ask those general questions. What advice would you have for me if I were going to be an accountant? Who else could I talk to that might give me a different perspective on this and see if they're comfortable doing that referral, because that's what networking is. It's going from one person to the next. So really setting that up in a comfortable way so that everyone can just have a good conversation. Now what happens in a lot of those cases is, and we know this from working with our alumni, a lot of times it starts out as that kind of a simple, easy, casual conversation. It can be on the phone, it can be on Zoom. We always still think that it's ideal if you can have that in-person meeting. It just feels a little bit more like people make connections that way. But whatever way works is great. Even email, I've seen it done that way. But a lot of times those do result in a referral to a next step. Like, oh, I just found out about a position that you might be interested in. I found out about an internship, or it looks like I could set up a job shadow for you. Would you like to come back? So it kind of elevates to those next levels after that. But that initial meeting really should just be an open, friendly meeting to start to learn about the field. Oops, excuse me. All right, and I'm happy to answer questions about that too, if there are any. What else do we have in here? Advice. Yeah, I want to mention the other thing. I was thinking about my own family history. I don't know how yours is, but my mom was micromanaged by her mom. She hated it. Her mom was trying to make her do all these things and telling her what to do. And so as a result, when I came along, she would not give me any advice. That was a little hard too. I felt a little neglected. I was like, hey, I kind of need a little bit of advice. So thinking about where you find that happy medium, as I've been talking about my kids, knowing the personality, my daughter will not take any advice from me. My son is very coachable and likes to listen. He makes his own decisions. So it just depends on the kid. With my daughter, I just wait till some morning we're having coffee and she's talking and she's happy, and that's the time to maybe start some of these conversations. So I have to be very careful about if, I'm going to try to find out what's going on with her, that there are certain times to do that. So it's a dance. That's the way I really see it. It's that there's kind of this back and forth and there's this dance, and sometimes students are going to need a little bit more support. I will also say, and I know some of my career counseling friends would probably not want to hear me saying this, but my daughter was having a problem. She needed to apply for jobs. She wasn't getting to that resume, and it was just, I could just see it was overwhelming her. So I finally drafted the first 5 lines of the resume. I'm not going to do the whole thing. That's too much support. I want her to learn. But I just did the first 5 lines, and that's all it took for her then to sit down and finish it. So I'm not beyond doing whatever it takes to be supportive in the appropriate way that still allows that challenge to be there so that they grow and learn the things that they're going to need to know to manage themselves. So I don't know if I'm doing it right as a parent. I've never figured it out if I'm doing parenting stuff right. I don't know about you guys, but that's a few ideas of how I've integrated my knowledge of career with my kids. I'm looking if there's anything else. Yeah, you've got help with resume on here and job shadow and providing opportunities. I have a few more here that I've seen work for students over the years too. Again, I'm sorry I keep going to my family, but these are the ones that stand out. There was a point when I was graduating from high school or from college, and my mom said, "Oh, you're going to have no problem finding a job because you can do this and this and this and this." And at the time, I said to her, "Oh, that's stupid. None of those count." But you know what? I still remember that conversation. It went in, and it was really helpful, even though I'm sure she never knew that it was at all helpful. So just being affirming and pointing out where you see unique things. My son was talking about microeconomics, and his eyes lit up, and I said, I don't see too many people where their eyes light up about microeconomics, so that might be meaningful to you. I think that might be something you want to pay attention to. So just kind of affirming and thinking about those opportunities to provide support that way. As I've been talking about, making sure that there's an openness that goals may change. This is a hard one. My daughter started out as nursing. I thought, oh, we're good. She's going to be a nurse. We're set. And in 1 month after college, she changed her major to chemistry. And now, this is one of my rules. You can never ask students, what are you going to do with that major? Because it's against what I've been saying, right? It's like, let's not tell students they're locked in. So it's taken everything I can do to not say, what are you going to do with that major? I haven't done it, but it is hard because she doesn't really have a career plan, and we're just, that's going to be the next thing she'll have to work on, I guess. So, but just like, so that openness that it was okay for her to leave nursing when that didn't make sense right away is always important. I talked about challenge and support. If you have too much challenge, it's overwhelming. If you have too much support, you don't learn. So figuring out when you need to provide one or the other. Reminding them of resources, and so I wasn't shy about like secretly going out and finding out when the career fairs were at Iowa State and just sending a little nudge about that. And we try to push that information out to parents as well, so that we know a lot of times that just that little nudge and reminder can make a difference, and students will attend those fairs. And the fairs, we think of fairs as being a way to get a job. They're such a good way to just explore options. So we really do encourage students early to get into those fairs. We just had a slate of them in September, so we're a little bit done now. They're always right at the beginning of the semester. We'll have a lot of them again in February, so that's the next chance to do that. Yeah, and I think we've talked about all those. Let's talk about one more thing that maybe we can learn from each other. So let's talk about something you have done in support of your students' college or career planning that seemed to work. Maybe you have I've been sharing some of the things I've encountered. I'd be curious to hear other perspectives on this. Yes, if you want to talk out loud, that would be a joy to me instead of me talking, so thank you, yes.
My son is a freshman in engineering. But the college search, it was almost a surprise where we ended up, and I think it was really important. Like, we kept saying trust in the process.
Trust in the process, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think it's really good that he ended up here and it's where he belongs, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion. And so I think that was something that worked.
That worked, was that you were able to just hold that space, let the process unfold, no pushing to make early decisions, that kind of thing is what you're talking about. Yeah, that's great. And it'll be the same thing with the next decision, right? So, yep, absolutely. I'd love to hear your ideas out loud. Any other thoughts, or here, if you like? Things that seem to resonate? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I can't hear you too well. Yeah, long ago, one of my, revered career counselor friends that, had been doing it for years, and she did a presentation on what do you do as a good career counselor, and she said, it really just comes back to listening, and just people, when they're talking, they hear themselves talk, and somehow that magic happens, and they start to understand themselves better. So just finding that chance to, this is why I was talking about that coffee time with my daughter. She starts talking, and I just try to keep her talking. That seems to really do a lot. It helps me understand where she's at, which is nice for me as a parent. I just kind of want to know that. But more importantly, it's helping her just process things. So very important. Any other thoughts about this? Yeah.
So I'm a student, but my mom
Yeah, that she was really supporting you. She was actively helping you just collect information, it sounds like. And then did you make the decision yourself about the college, or how did that unfold?
So the University of Minnesota was the first college I toured, and then I did a second tour later, and then, I don't know, this one was just the one that I really got attached to.
Yeah, sometimes it just is feels like the right place. So, yep. So that's great. I love. That's another thing. I guess I've kind of said it, but parents can just provide information. You know, I'm constantly sending websites to my kids, and I know some of it might be annoying to them. I don't know how they receive it. They don't always answer, but it's just I see stuff and getting information out that might be helpful. Well, I know we're going to have to wrap up soon, so I'm just going to end on a couple notes. This is a good book. It's been out for a while. Marjorie Savage is actually was the parent educator here at the university for a long time, and she wrote this book after doing her work, and it's for helping with that transition from college to career. You're on your own, but I'm here if you need me, and I think that summarizes that challenge and support idea really nicely. And then the other thing I always like to say is, you know, this crowd has such a really optimistic, positive view of how this is all going to go, and that's great. And sometimes it gets a little overwhelming when it does. I just think it's often a matter of just breaking it down one little step at a time. Just get through this class. Just, you know, don't do the whole resume, just do the top of it. Whatever the steps are, just to break them down so that this all is manageable. A little bit throughout the college experience will really add up. It doesn't have to be a Herculean effort at that point. So, okay, I will not ask you to write questions. We have 2 minutes. Are there any questions that would be kind of relevant to the crowd? Otherwise, I'm going to stay as long as you like and talk to people if you have questions of me. Anything for the crowd, though? Anything you think others would like to hear? All right. Well, as I said, I will be here, right here, and I'll hang out until questions are answered. But thank you for joining us today. I'll maybe see some of you later around campus as a parent. And good luck with everything here at the university. It's such a wonderful place. I wouldn't have stayed here 30 years. You're all lucky to be at a good place, and we're really proud of ourselves here and hope you'll enjoy your stay with us. And that's it for today. Thank you. You're reminding me, actually, yeah, let me do something. Yeah, I forgot that I was going to leave this QR code that gets you back to the presentation with all the links. So that's not what you're asking exactly, but it reminded me that, oh, I forgot to show that. So